I'm probably going to get a lot of hate out of this, but it needs to be said. That lady that sat there and called the churches up to see if they would provide infant formula for a fake baby she had crying in the background, well, there's several issues with that right there. It appears she had an agenda, and it appears her agenda was to discredit Christian charity. One, she was calling up mega churches mostly. And mega churches are not good representatives of Christianity because they usually teach what's called prosperity gospel, which is a heresy. The objective of prosperity gospel is to make the pastor rich. It's not to sit there and be charitable towards others. So she called the incorrect groups to see about Christian charity. The other thing is she included non-Christian faiths in her sampling, which means her sampling was bad as well. If you want to see what Christian churches do, you call up Christian churches. If she was trying to do a comparative, then she should have called up equivalencies. So if she's calling a small mosque, she should have had a small church as an equivalency. So in other words, she also had a problem in her sampling. There was a sampling bias in her methods. The other issue with this, she's not considering regulatory measures. There are regulations on churches and how they can use assistance and funds and stuff like that. Some of the churches she called up that she labeled as wouldn't help actually was able to help, but they had to refer her to a food bank where the money they were using could be distributed from a food bank but could not be distributed out of the church because of certain regulations. You can Google it up. You can Google up churches that got in trouble for feeding the homeless. You can look up churches that the government persecuted because they sheltered the homeless. This is something she didn't consider in her experiment. The other thing is she could also be facing legal repercussions depending on what states in the USA she called. Because if she called any states where you have two-party consent, in other words, both parties on the phone call or all parties on the phone call have to consent to the phone call being recorded, if she called any churches in those states, she could be facing legal consequences from those states or from those churches for illegally recording them. Anyhow, it's a big fiasco. Christian charity is one of the most charitable things in the entire world. The Christian faith helps people all over the world. The idea that she tried to defraud by using a fake baby to ask for formula she didn't need, and especially like calling churches that don't even actually represent the Christian faith because they do prosperity gospel, was just another bad thing. Plus also, mark this, wouldn't help because they have to follow legal regulations set forth by the government in order to help. Now, the churches that could help immediately, they were probably under a different program with the U.S. government, meaning they were able to help right away, but the churches that would help are underrepresented in her little experiment there. And since she's not a data research scientist at all, that's why her study is all flawed. And unfortunately, a lot of people probably don't know to look at it and go, oh, this is a flawed study. This is meaningless because you did it wrong.